It is the front page Saturday Town Hall edition, a COVID response, and it is brought to you by our incredible partners, Council President Emeritus Herb Wesson, also known as Herb, Community Build, an incredible community-based organization, the Independent Professionals Association at indwork.org, the City of Los Angeles, and Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas. Our topic today, will these industries bounce back? We've got sectors from airlines to the gig economy, now turning to the entertainment industry that are really just struggling under coronavirus. Will they pivot or will they perish? That is our topic today. We're being joined by a man who's currently the creator of the upcoming Apple series Swagger, inspired by NBA superstar Kevin Durant's youth basketball experiences. He started his professional career writing for the hit comedy series A Different World. Years later, after attending the Million Man March, he wrote a script for his first produced screenplay. You remember, Get on the Bus. Among his many credits, he was supervising producer on New York Undercover, wrote and directed the acclaimed feature film Dancing in September, one of my favorites. Biker Boys, co-wrote Notorious, and created the limited series Shots Fired with his wife, Gina Prince Bythewood. I'm talking about Reggie Rock Bythewood. Good morning. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked the barber, the baker, and the chef. How's business?
Business is interesting, for me personally, it's a big push to get back into production. So on the show that you mentioned, Swagger, we were about 5 episodes in, and then, everything just obviously hit a wall in March. We're shooting in Richmond, which is doing better than, many other cities in the country. But we had to shut down for safety precautions. And then since then, it's just been trying to put things in place to get back into production and finish out our season.
Yeah, for all the people that are wondering, where are my episodes? A lot of,
right.
For consumers, it's like you just got suspended, and that's breaking the fourth wall for me. Oh, darn it. They can't shoot because they're under pandemic. Adding another voice to this conversation, he's an up-and-coming African-American film writer, director, producer. He produced Rebel on BET and Thriller on Netflix. His latest project is Welcome to Sudden Death, starring Michael Jai White and Gary Owen. It's premiering on Netflix September 29th. Dallas Jackson, good morning.
Good morning.
Should I say also a bison? Should I say that?
HU, we can say that. HU, good morning.
Good morning. My brothers, Amity and Raz, both went to Howard, so got that connection.
Yes, and we came in together the same year, and I know your brother well, and I'm glad he's doing well. And Reggie and I are actually tight in real life outside of the radio life, where our birthdays are on the same day. We've done some work together, so this is a good morning.
It's a great morning.
Good morning, Dallas.
So,
morning, brother.
How are you adjusting, or can you even adjust to the pandemic for your own projects?
I've actually stayed busy writing. Studios are still wanting to keep projects moving forward in hopes of when this is over, things can proceed into production. So I've stayed busy on that front. I just had a phone call last night about shooting a movie in the fall in Georgia, and actually, putting in COVID insurance and procedures in place. So I think things are starting to, the fall is trying to come back on. I just think it'll be a bit different with procedures in place because of the pandemic until things can kind of clear up. But as Reggie said, there are a lot of projects that are now in kind of a state of hiatus until things can fully get back up and functioning and people can figure out, properly how to proceed. And the biggest thing is where to proceed. That was a big part of the call last night of where do we shoot this and what's the best place. And I think that's a lot of studios' questions right now.
Yeah, I read that. Go ahead, Reggie Rock Bythewood.
Well, I was just going to say, I think when it first hit, there was a consensus that, wow, we got to shut down, and it may be 3 months, maybe 4 months. you know. And now it's like 6 months later or such, and it's like, okay, you know, we really don't know, you know, where the end is in sight. So how do we get back to work? How do we get back to production with this new normal and you know, resume production in a safe manner as possible?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was reading that, you know, Tyler Perry was testing everyone and then having them stay on his lot until the project was over, which is a luxury most producers and directors don't have, right? Their own private lot. But even then, I'm thinking about the NBA, you know, and the NFL and, you know, all the restrictions that they have and people still coming up positive. How do you think, you know, how are you seeing this impact? I mean, you guys have multiple skills. You can go home and write, but how do you see this impacting actors and, you know, gaffers and, you know, craft service and all those folks that depend on the film industry?
Well, one of the things that's happening is oh, go ahead, Dallas.
Yeah, go ahead, Dallas.
It's having a tremendous effect in terms of people who work and depend upon production, and even just right down to people who, you know, in terms of like sports, who just the mom and pop people who sell merchandise, who sell, you know, snow cones and cotton candy, or the people that just are the caterers for production. I mean, it's affecting a lot of people. And unfortunately, some of those people can't pivot because this is what they've been doing for the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah, Reggie Rock, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think you're going to see certain things change on set. So, for example, you know, the idea of everybody breaking and having lunch at the same time, you know, is probably not going to happen. You know, people are going to, you know, lunch breaks will be, you know, interspersed, and people will just do it in smaller gatherings. It probably won't even be gatherings of lunch. It'll just be more like as if, you know, you have takeout containers. And so people can social distance. So there'll be things like that. You know, everybody on set basically is going to have to wear masks. And then there are different zones. You know, so there's a zone that just is almost like a little bubble within a bubble. There's a zone where only actors can be in. And then there's another zone for people that you know, that have to, you know, be closer to the actors. Maybe it's makeup and wardrobe. So a lot of it is just like zoned out, and it's really confusing, and everybody's trying to figure it out. But it'll be, you know, it'll be closer along those lines. And I guess I do want to mention, you know, one other thing as we talk about, you know, coming back from COVID. You know, if I may, you know, I'd just like to share, you know, with you. You know, on May 29th, I had a call with several other showrunners, and we were talking about much of the same things we're talking about now, which is how to come back to production from COVID-19. It was a Zoom call with, you know, it was about 40 of us. Most of the showrunners were white. I think there might have been one or two other people of color at the most on the call, which, you know, doesn't surprise Dallas, myself, and many of us, you know, when we've been in the business as long as we have. But one of the things that we talked about so much was how to come back from production. And this was 4 days after George Floyd's murder. And so we had to kind of do a redo of the call and really start also talking about how do we come back into production with a new level of awareness, you know. So whether we want to say post-reckoning or post-George Floyd, it's not just coming back safely with masks, and also it's also really looking at when we come in a certain neighborhood, do we have tons of police officers coming in telling people you can't cross the street because production is going on? You know, what are we doing for these communities? Who are the people that are being hired in a crew? How many people of color are we putting as department heads? So all of that stuff that we are talking about, you know, in terms of COVID health, we also have to talk about in terms of Black health, Black mental health, just Black consciousness being a part of all of our discussions in the industry as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I've experienced it so many times living in South LA where crews come in, you know, there are no Black people, and they're suddenly taking over your neighborhood. But the other thing, you know, the LA Times had an interesting piece, which, you know, those of us who have worked in the industry already know, which is that, you know, sadly, our entertainment unions have a diversity problem. A lot of the below the line, you know, from makeup to lighting to all of the good union jobs that are attached to film and television. They're mostly unionized, and they're mostly not black people or Latino people or Asian people or indigenous people.
Well, I would say one of the positives that is coming out of this is that there are people, I know Dallas can speak to this as well. There are a lot of us that are now, just really clamping down on having our voices heard and addressing these issues. So, you have black DGA members, black creatives all over town, bringing forth, demands and getting in the room with those
DGA being Directors Guild of America.
Exactly.
For those who don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's so powerful when directors and talent do it. I remember, a Twitter fight that broke out before George Floyd where actresses were saying, look, I want a black stylist on set. And it just seems it's so strong. And, even the movie Black Panther, where we saw so many, people get opportunities to work, on a major project. Dallas, what were you about to say about that?
Well, I was just saying that I think what has happened during the pandemic, which is actually positive, it shined a light on the lack of diversity, and also the need for change. So, me personally, I have experienced what Reggie has said, where you're the only one in the room. Unfortunately, I've experienced that quite a bit. But there's been kind of a reckoning during this time, at least in the conversations I've had with executives, that they realize that is a problem. And I've never heard anybody acknowledge that was a problem. So I think, if anything, there is going to be some demand and some changes made in diversity, and not only below the line, but just in our voices with writers and directors. I was flown out right before the pandemic hit to shadow on a show called The Expanse, which is a big sci-fi show for Amazon. And they had never had a director of color do any episodes of the show. The show's been on for 3 years. And the producers realized that. And I think that there'll be more of that. And there'll be more opportunities, hopefully, because this light has been shined just nationwide on the problem in our industry and just nationwide.
I'll take a couple calls before you guys have to go. We have Stephanie calling from Los Angeles. Good morning, Stephanie. You're on with Dallas, Jackson, and Reggie Rock, Bythewood. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. You guys kind of started to touch on my question. But my question was, how do you feel the industry is handling social justice? And the conversation kind of moved over to that. So that was my question.
Well, we might be able to dive a little deeper into that. Stephanie wants to know what initiatives are happening. How is social justice impacting? And I'm encouraged by the fact that the marching and the protesting does seem to be translating into voting, and it does seem to be really having some impact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really inspired by a lot of the collectives that are coming together, where it's, literally, and, it's a celebrity list almost, if you will, of black talent, directors, producers, executives that are meeting continuously on creating change, and people that, have never really come together before. And so I think that a lot of the stuff I won't talk about now until certain things are presented. But, with the Directors Guild, there are a lot of changes that have needed to be made in terms of just hiring, in terms of inclusion, in terms of just a laundry list, even in terms of reparations that have been put forth to the Directors Guild. And I think all across, we're going to see some changes, and we're going to keep pushing. The question is always, have we turned the corner? Does Hollywood get it now? And, as Dallas said, there are people listening now that haven't listened before. I think some are doing it for the right reasons. Some may be doing it because it's popular to do, or public relations. But the fact of the matter is, we do have an ear, people's ear right now. I think one of the other things, too, that I really think we also want to focus on as well is because, at the heart of it, Dallas and I are both writers. And so as writers, we want to make sure that writers' rooms don't just hire and have, we want diversity in the writers' room. That's really important. It's like 45% of all staff writers are people of color. That includes everything, Black, Latino, Asian. But then as you start to move up the ranks into like showrunner status, only 12% of those are people of color. So we really want to do inclusion there. But one of the other things too is we want people that are in the writers' rooms to understand, systemic racism. We're starting to talk a lot more about the Say Her Name movement, and there are people like Kimberly Crenshaw from the African American Policy Forum who really has been really great in explaining to everybody that it's George Floyd, Oscar Grant, Trayvon Martin, all of these people have been killed, but we're also forgetting about, these women, Michelle Clouseau and Kayla Moore and just so many people. So I think so much of it also is using this opportunity to raise consciousness among writers so that writers can actually have the information they need, that we need to put forth correct storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it is an awakening. It's an education. It's like a one big national teach-in. I hope people are reading Ibram X. Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and the long book list. Reggie, you sounded like you were thinking of something you wanted to jump in there.
No, I'm good. I mean, I can keep going, but I'm good.
No, well, I was just going to say also that it's an interesting time. Proposition 16 will be on the ballot, which is about affirmative action, bringing back those opportunities, those billions of dollars that we as Black people lost because Ward Connolly passed Proposition 209 and shut down programs, which were a very baby step form of almost like, I won't call it reparations, but it was a movement to, bring back some of the opportunities that we lost due to racism, white supremacy. Now we have the opportunity to bring that back. At the same time, people are marching in the street. Hopefully that will also impact the entertainment industry as well.
Right.
And I think people also have to, we have to, people as myself and Reggie and, the late John Singleton, who was a good friend of ours, was really big on hiring us, in all aspects of production. And we just have to continue to light that fire, not only with our own contemporaries, but with others and force their hand. And as Reggie said, there'll be some things revealed, I think, that will help that cause.
Looking forward to it. Michael Burdett calling us from Oakland. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Sorry, a little background.
Michael, I think you've got to roll your window up. You're an entertainment promoter, independent entertainment promoter. We're up against the clock here, Michael. What did you want to say?
Well, what I do down here, I'm in Oakland, up here, and I do concert promotions. So I'm an African American. I'm solo, basically small business, and the whole COVID thing and then trying to get African Americans to work, trying to get everyone employed and up to speed and having a conduit of faith for people to actually get involved in the economic structure of society is very pertinent right now. It's really relevant discussions. And as a part of that, I just employed people wherever I can, and most of them African American, being, like we had just said, musicians against racism and I actual, police issue that was going on in Vallejo, California, where like 40 some odd Black males have been killed over the last 3 years, and we had to get out there and the musicians against racism. So we're doing our part to actually be a part of
I'm so inspired by that. But Michael, how do you see live concerts bouncing back? I mean, this seems like one area. I know movie theaters are opening this weekend for the first time. It'll be interesting to see if people go back. They're opening with distance measuring. Live concerts seems like it might be one of the last things to come back.
At this point, we're not getting the go-ahead to do anything in terms of person-to-person contact. They are restructuring a lot of the venues right now to make sure that we can have some kind of, like the last venue that we had they had created social bubbles. So they would have 5 or 6 friends and family in an arena, and there would be like, maybe 30 little enclaves of fans that actually could be there to witness the actual performances. But
got it.
Yeah, they haven't given us the go ahead right now. We're still kind of on the bubble.
Got to leave it there, Michael. We're up against the clock. But see, it reminds me of what you guys are saying about production. It's like, and which is the same as what's happening in schools, creating little pods of, people that work together all the time, or households. I guess Reggie Rock, Bythewood, what would you like to see come out of this? If there was anything, positive, we mentioned, what's positive coming out of the protest, what pivots could happen that could be for the good out of the coronavirus?
Well, certainly a lot of the things that we voiced during our careers are not new. We had a lot of the same concerns prior to COVID, prior to George Floyd. And so what feels like it could be new in a bit of a shift at this moment in time is that people are listening. And so one of the things that I would really love to do is really see a full level of inclusion, yes, among directors, yes, among writers, especially among executives, black executives, and especially below the line. So a lot of the folks that I have been huddling with are really seeking to make those things a reality. And then just also, I think I'm not sure. Dominique, I'm not sure if this is like specific to COVID or even George Floyd. It's just that it feels like people are listening now, and just the way that we're treating women, and we speak about women, and the way that we highlight women as well. Even Dallas was mentioning the hiring that I do and he does, and John Singleton, and I'd be remiss to leave out people like Gina Prince Bythewood and Shonda Rhimes and Kerry Washington and so many artists that are really, badass sisters that are really fighting for change in front of the camera, behind the camera. And so I just really want, now that we have a moment where people are listening, I just feel like it's time to go get it.
Can't wait to see Swagger, your Apple series. I'm gonna have to binge that one.
Thank you.
Dallas Jackson, what would you leave us with this morning? Regarding the entertainment industry at a crossroads.
I would leave us that I think that there is always hope, and there's always very smart people in this business who want to get us back to work. And let's hope that we can get back to work with a different attitude and mindset and a different landscape of people that look like us and our other brothers and sisters of color that are included. I'm very good friends with Melina Abdullah, one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, fellow HU alumni. And she said something interesting that I thought was very cool, which is she has seen her wildest dreams and things that she has been protesting for years starting to happen and starting to shift. And I hope that that's not a trend or a fad, that it continues to shift and trickle down to the things like we do, which seem minute but are a major factor in people's lives, which is entertainment.
Congratulations on Rebel and Thriller. And are you guys, Dallas, Jackson, and Reggie Rock, Bythewood, you guys going to the movies this weekend? We can go now.
Not just yet for me, because my wife won't let me just yet, but we're going to get there.
We're going to get there. Yep. Well, there's probably a seat available. Reggie Rock.
I'll be home writing, but, we'll see. We'll see. I'll get there when I can.
Family, we are continuing our conversation. It is the Front Page Saturday Town Hall Edition. Dallas Jackson, Reggie Rock, Bythewood, thank you so much. Continuing right after this, Radio Free, 102.3 KJLH.